Welcome to the Sphere Weaving course. Welcome to my garden. I'm going to take you through the processes of making your very own woven sphere. So open your kit and we'll get started. The first step is creating your frame for your sphere. Take your two halves out of your kit and line them up together. Then take your tie wraps and thread them through both halves of the frame. Don't over tighten, as you'll need to keep adjusting your frame throughout. Continue to add all 6 tie wraps. Try and space them equally around the frame. As you add your tie wraps, the frame will come together a little more closely. Tighten each tie wrap and then trim the excess. Make sure that once you've trimmed the excess away, that you push the small tail into the centre of the sphere. Sometimes the cut edges can be sharp and we don't want it to catch your fingers. There you have a sphere, ready for weaving. In your kit you'll find lots of fibre, so take one of your strands, lay it by your side and find the end. You're going to thread it just under one piece of the frame, and then you want to pull through about half of the fibre, so you'll have half on one side and half on the other. Where it comes through the frame, hold it nice and tightly, and then find the other end. Using a hand span, you're going to tuck one end under the frame and pull it through. On this first layer, I think a hand span is a good unit of measurement. Every time you tuck the fibre through the frame and pull it through, you're going to rotate the sphere. What we're looking for is a movement across the surface of the frame. You'll notice that every time that we thread through another piece and pull it tight, that after I've finished moving it, I'm holding the frame and the fibre where it pops out. You want to allow the fibre to move around freely, so you don't want to restrict its movement, so that's why we hold where it's coming out of the frame. You're going to be working with very long lengths, and some people do ask whether they should trim the lengths to shorter pieces, but I find it doesn't give you as good a finish having lots of cut ends on the inside. So here we go at the end, just bend it and tuck it into the frame so that the frame will hold that end piece. Now let's find the other half. Find the end piece and let's get weaving again. The fibre comes on these very large reels, so it's already got quite a nice curvature to it. So you want to try and go with that curve rather than fighting against it. What we're trying to do on this first layer is to build a foundation for the swirls that are going to appear quite naturally as you work the sphere. It's important that you don't thread the fibre under too much of the frame. Just one bar would be quite ample. You can see you need quite a bit of space to work this frame as the fibre is springing all over the place. So sitting in the garden is a great way to do that because you're not likely to be hitting anything with your fibre. You'll notice when I weave that I always bring my left hand that's holding the frame to my side. So that means that when I'm threading with the end of the fibre, that I'm pulling down the side of my body with a smooth motion. You don't want to be pulling the fibre all over the place and hurting yourself. So make sure that you move in the same way with each time you thread the fibre. I'm coming to an end of the first piece now. So you continue threading through the frame, turning as you go. And that last one, you want to find somewhere to tuck the fibre in. And there you go, your very first piece of fibre on the frame. We're going to go and add another piece of fibre. I'm looking for somewhere that I'm going to add it, and I'm going to thread under 2 pieces of fibre. Pull through the excess, just like we did with the first one. So you've got half and half. So the difference from the first layer is that as you're adding more and more fibre, you want to try and add a large series of curves all over your frame. So when you're looking for somewhere to tuck in, try and cover an area that's not already been covered. So you're going to try and create a nice series of swirling movements across your frame. If the piece doesn't look right, then just keep moving the frame round until you find an area where you think it will look good. As your frame starts to get thicker and thicker, you may be able to start using the fibre that's already on the frame to thread through rather than the framework. So as you're adding more and more fibre to your sphere, we're going to use the framework less and less. So it builds up a nice surface texture. We've got an area here that's a little blank, so we're going to move a piece of fibre across the middle. Find somewhere to tuck it. I'm going to go under the fibre and pull it through. There we go, right across the centre of that big open area. And continue weaving. All the time, rotating the sphere and laying down a nice coverage of fibre in a swirl pattern. We're going to make a nice twist on here. So by making sure we always thread in the same direction, when we thread 2 pieces together, you get this little twist. Now as you work around your frame, always adding in the same direction. So I'm going from furthest away from you towards you in the same motion. So pull it towards you, and that way every time you add a new piece of fibre, it's always going in the same direction, and the little twists are always going to be laid down in the same direction. Now these twists will start to join up eventually, and this is one of the things that is going to help create the swirling motion on the surface of your sphere. Take the end and tuck it in. Find the other half and continue weaving. Sometimes it really isn't clear where to go, and that piece looks really nice curve, so I'm going to add to that by adding another piece of fibre. You can see a couple of twists starting to form. Now if I add in another tuck, it will add another twist. Another big open area, so just seeing where I can fill or cover a piece of that frame. That's a nice curve. Now if I add a tuck going in the opposite direction to that curve, we'll get a nice twist and the two will pull against each other. And then pull and turn the other way and carry on tucking. You can see how these little twists all start to join together. You can really see how the twists are starting to come together, and by adding another, it's just going to accentuate those twists even more. Coming to the end of another piece of fibre, so remember you need to find somewhere secure to tuck that last piece in. You always want the pieces to end inside the frame. We're going to continue adding more and more fibre. we want to try and build up a nice thick layer. You can see already we're only a few pieces in, but the swirl pattern is already starting to form. You can make these without a frame, but I just find that the use of the frame helps to keep that sphere nice and tight. Plus also, if you decide to hang your woven sphere, you've got a nice strong framework to clip your chain to, which you'll find in your kit. You can see Max has just decided to pop in view. My little dog Max comes to the studio with me every day. Whilst you carry on weaving, I'll tell you a little bit about the Eco Fibre. Now, I used to do all of my weaving in willow when I first started creating sculptures, and weaving the willow or the fibre, I find it is no difference as far as the design and the patterns that I can create. Obviously there's a big difference with the preparation. With willow I used to spend almost a week preparing the material. First you'd have to grade it into the sizes, then you'd need to soak it in water, generally a day per foot, and then once you finish your soaking you take it out of the tank and wrap it and leave it to rest, to mellow. The disadvantage to this is that if you take the willow out of the tank too early, then it's going to crack, as it's not going to bend very well. If you take it out too late, then all the bark rubs off. So there's a lot of disadvantages and advantages of working with willow. Once I found the Eco Fibre, the great thing about it is that you just take off what you need from the roll. It's created in a state-of-the-art facility in Germany, and it's an environmentally friendly fibre. It's really strong and durable, it's weather fast, and you get such a large range of colours and textures. So when I'm creating very large public artworks, if they want a hand-woven piece, I can take along with me this sample box full of all these different colours and thicknesses. The fibre is also 100% recyclable, it's sustainably manufactured, it's not toxic, and looking after it is so easy. Once you pop it in the garden, all you have to do is give it an occasional wash with some soapy water should it get dirty. We're going to continue adding more fibre. You'll notice the surface has really got some great swirls now. At this stage you probably don't need to be using the frame at all, because you've got a really good grid of swirling patterns running all over the surface of your sphere. Just as we did at the beginning, moving the fibre around, looking at where you're going to take it. Thread through, pull it down towards you, so it snaps into place. Hold the frame and turn, and then again move the fibre around until you find an area that you want to fill. Sometimes it's very difficult to find an area, so I would recommend you just keep moving it around until you find a position where you're happy with. And if you've put something in and you're really not happy with its positioning, then undo it and put it in again. You'll see, look, I've gone under quite a few pieces there because I didn't want to ruin the effect by going over the top. So I've threaded under 3 pieces of fibre. As the pattern really starts to develop, there'll be bits that I want to highlight and there'll be bits that I want to cover over. So it's up to you where you place your fibre. So if you don't want to ruin a line, then make sure you thread underneath it. If you have a big space, then try and span the fibre across that space. I've used this fibre now for a number of years on quite a wide range of projects, from creating grand spheres as large as 1.4 metres in diameter to as little as these 30cm ones. Once you've got your fibre on the frame, you add another 10 centimetres of diameter with the thickness of the weave. So your frame is 30 centimetres and then the finished sculpture becomes 40 centimetres. You can see there I've passed under quite a few pieces because I didn't want to ruin a particular effect. Keep moving it around and threading it through. The grand sphere sculpture has become a very popular sculpture over the years. I first created them and displayed them in the grounds of Bolsover Castle and Creswell Crags in Derbyshire, and then I took them to the RHS Chelsea Flower Show, which was a fantastic experience to show my sculptures. Some of the other popular shapes have been my fallen egg, a pod shape, and at the moment I'm weaving a giant 2-metre high acorn for a charity. This fibre is just so flexible and gives you such a lot of different colours, different textures, that it allows you to create these fantastic sculptures that can go out in the public realm that don't really need very much care, just the occasional soapy wash. And it's the same for placing them in your garden. You can nestle these in amongst the foliage, you can hang them from trees. They're very versatile. I'm going to leave you to your weaving for a few moments and I'll come back to you in a little while. Once you've finished adding all of your 6mm fibre, you're going to add your 3mm fibre, and you're going to work all 4 strands together. You'll notice I've fastened the end with a piece of tape. Pull through half, just like we did with the thicker pieces, and you're going to try and work all 4 strands of the 3mm fibre together. This final part is like a highlighting, so as you're moving your pieces around, I'm looking for swirls that I really want to highlight and give more definition to. It can be a little tricky working 4 strands together, but I found it's much easier to do it together than to try and follow that same path 4 times to build up that thickness. So do persevere. I'm using the same movement as well, moving and threading, so it always comes down my right hand side, and obviously if you're left-handed then just swap it over. Sometimes this last bit can become quite tricky because you've got such a lot of fibre on the surface of your sphere, and finding places to thread it is fewer and fewer. Sometimes you need to get your fingers into the frame and just give it a little hand guiding it through. Now, just as with the 6mm fibre, the same with the 3mm fibre, once you get to the end, you're going to want to try and find somewhere where you can tuck all of the little ends in securely into your sphere. You don't want them popping out, so find somewhere you can really wedge them. Then return to the other half. So when you come to the other side and you want to try and get all of the 4 pieces together, now if they don't if they're not quite even, then you can just snip the ends of the fibre to make sure that they're all the same length. Just snip them with a pair of wire cutters. The last few pieces of fibre now to thread in, and you've almost finished your sphere. I do hope you've enjoyed joining me on this sphere weaving course, and if you want to try your hand at some of the other techniques I use in my sculpture, then do go and have a look at my website where you'll see lots of other tutorials. There you have it, your finished sphere sculpture, ready to nestle in the garden. Thank you, and please join me again for another tutorial.